Hello, trading is closed on July 22nd, 2020. Let's go over our calls. We said we were in a vulnerable period, but until some prior lows fell, we couldn't be certain of anything. They didn't fall. Here's what we said. Nothing's for sure till some prior lows fall. We are at an area where a significant drop could begin. I still think that that's true. But until some of these lows fall, I don't think it's a lock. We had some targets. This one printed. This one gets added to the list. This is getting a bit longer. So I've said before, typically about every 6 months, I'll get about 10 or 11 numbers on the list, and you want to throw your hands up and think things aren't going to work. At least over the last 18 years, at some point, those long lists get whittled down to nothing just about every time. Call for the pattern with the early low. Frankly, if this were the only day I saw, I would think it was the pattern with the early high. But based on patterns of prior days, this has to be the pattern with the early low. There's about an hour tolerance on the time. And if you move some of these lows around by an hour, you'll see that times will work perfectly. During the day, MEJT said ultimately lower prices would print, but the drop was false and they retrace. Said the same thing here again. Lower prices would print, but the drop was false and they'd retrace. Nothing for tomorrow. We rallied all day long. Wouldn't have taken too much to close over these highs, so we couldn't close over any of them. That's a day-long rally which accomplished nothing. The rally isn't necessarily over. All we have to do is gap and promptly clear these highs, and it continues. But if we can't do that, a rally which accomplishes nothing should lead to lower prices, and tomorrow's pattern is the early low. Doesn't mean you'll close lower, but if we don't take this high out early, I think there'll be a drop. We still have nothing convincing as far as the end of this wave up, and that's why we're taking it a day at a time. I think it's pretty hard to still say this is an ending diagonal triangle. If it were, we should have started dropping. It's possible that's A and that's B and that's C. There are other ways to count it. You still have a volatility index, sell signal, and you still have close enough to C equals A to be cautious, but you don't have enough to mortgage the house and think we're going to drop, because if we go up, you'll be reminded this isn't the only way to count things. Tomorrow's pattern has early low. Doesn't mean you won't gap up. We still have valid reasons to be cautious, but not enough to be convinced that the tide is turned. Reversal from here remains possible. I'm less confident. I don't know where that and came from. And here I thought I proofread this. But we rallied all day. We couldn't manage a close over yesterday's highs, so we have to clear the high promptly or else lower prices print, but that's not a guarantee we're going to close lower. At some point, we're going to see lower prices. If it starts now, fine, but it's a bit less likely than it was after yesterday's action, because if we'd followed through on this, you had a good case for an ending diagonal triangle, and that's not what this looks like now. Doesn't mean you're out of the woods yet. If you're going to drop, you need to take out some of these lows. Until that happens, the rally is intact. And that's today's call. Early low tomorrow.